I like to call your USP, something that I hope everybody takes note of and takes away, and that stands for your unique selling proposition, and is really what makes you unique from your competitors, right? And most times it's the littlest things, right? You can think about Pepsi and Coca-Cola, right? If the outside of the taste, for the most part, their branding for the most part is what the key difference is, right? And sometimes it may not be your branding. You might also have what's called a first mover's advantage. So that's something that I have experience with. When I first started my agency, we were one of the first black. I am actually speaking to a group of entrepreneurs in a program called HBCU 5. This is an accelerated program that's created for startups, particularly from historically black universities and colleges. As some of you know, I graduated from Morgan State University, so I'm actually an alumni of this program. They've invested in a couple of my businesses, and I would definitely recommend this to any startup or entrepreneur who is getting into business and goes to an HBCU. Or if you're an alum from an HBCU, they also have amazing programs for us as well. And this is not a paid post. This is me genuinely speaking from my experience, this is me genuinely speaking from my experience with them. So again, definitely would recommend checking out their website and see if there's a program application that's fit for you. So today we're going to be talking about startup marketing. I'm going to be speaking to a group of entrepreneurs. They're going to be asking me questions live about marketing your business as a startup, especially when you have little to no resources. Most times when you get into business, you do not have the capital, you do not have the resources to invest in ads heavily, or even if you do, you want to make sure you're properly maximizing it, as well as what social media channels to prioritize, what metrics to prioritize. We're going to get into all of those things today in this call. And this is an exclusive group of individuals on this Zoom call here, and you have an exclusive front seat to this experience. So make sure you hit the like and subscribe button, and make sure you're tuned in for this video because this is going to be really, really insightful. Let's get into it.
We're joined by a familiar face. Peter's back to talk about marketing and branding. He's the founder of Tycoon AI.
Hello everyone, happy Monday. It's nice to be seeing some of you all again. As some of you all know, my name is Peter Iwu. I'm a marketing professional, entrepreneur, and author based here in Los Angeles, originally from Hyattsville, Maryland. Class of 2022 graduate from Morgan State University, and the CEO and founder of Tycoon AI, which is an AI agent for student athletes. I also run Tycoon Agency, which is a traditional marketing agency. So really excited to be talking to you all about marketing today. Hopefully we can have some viral businesses after this phone call, and you all hopefully have some notepads and pens getting ready to dance around because I have a lot of gems to share today. So I was super prepared for this one, so I'm excited.
Question is, what is brand identity and why is it important for a startup or perhaps an individual if you're branding yourself as like a CEO?
For sure. I think branding from a CEO perspective, also from your company perspective, is essentially how it plays a role in how people feel when they come to your brand, when they engage with your brand, whether that's on social media, whether that's offline as well. And it's the little things like the colors, the tone, the logos, the visuals that people see when your brand is talked about, when your brand is being promoted online. And when it comes to the tone, which I think is one of the most applicable aspects on social media, I know some of us utilize like whether it's AI or third-party platforms to support with like captionings, but even if you're doing that, which I'm not against, you want to think about exactly what the tone is and making sure you're staying consistent there, right? So you can look into certain brands and notice, oh, when they talk, it sounds like you're talking to your sister, or when they talk, it sounds like you're talking to your lawyer. Oh, when they put a caption, it's very detailed. Some don't use any emojis, some do use emojis. So thinking about based off your brand and how you want your audience to feel when they're scrolling on your feed, what does that feel like, right? Same thing with the logo, same thing with your colors. Like when people see these colors, like how do they feel? Do they feel like it's time to get up and go and buy your product, or get up and go and have that consultation? Or if they come to your website, do they want to stay on or do they want to get off very fast, right? So thinking about all of those elements and how it plays a role in your potential customer experience is where the importance of branding comes in.
And I guess I'll chime in too from the individual standpoint. Being able to know who you are as a startup founder and just as an individual, period, in the space of communications, it really is important, because if you're pitching yourself to be interviewed by a journalist, or if you're pitching, let's say, your business to be featured in Forbes or Fast Company or Adweek or anything like that, people really want to be able to know what your story is and who you are. We want to be able to see confidence. Similar to what Peter was saying, when people see you, do they think, oh my God, they're so friendly? Do they think, yo, they're really about their business? Or, oh my God, that person really knows how to command a room. Or, oh, this person doesn't speak as much. So being able to know who you are, and if you're introverted, that's okay. Let that be your thing. If you're somebody that likes to be a professional yapper, that's great. Let that be your thing. But your brand identity as a CEO is just as important as your brand identity as a business, because if people don't like who you are as a person, they're not going to gravitate towards your brand. People don't buy products, people buy stories. And if they don't like your personality, if they don't know how to resonate with your personal brand, then there's always going to be that disconnect between the person and the product.
100%. And just to piggyback off that, because I think she hit it right on the nail, like one sentence that I was going to say is simply, you want to make sure that people align with you beyond the transactional relationship, right? Before and after people spend their money, how do they feel? How do they think? I'm sure most of us have brands where it's like, oh, you're shopping with this brand, you didn't hear about the CEO did this, you didn't hear about the team that did that. Like she said, people have to buy you, buy the story, especially at the early stages. Most times, even when you're getting investments, most of us probably hear that they're investing into the founder and not the business, because you're the person selling the business at the early stage. So if your brand isn't necessarily solidified, it can really make moving forward a bit challenging. So for sure.
Yes, thank you both so much for that. And how can a startup effectively position its brand in a crowded market? So as you're developing this sense, how do you stand out?
Yeah, I think it's really what I like to call your USP, something that I hope everybody takes note of and takes away, and that stands for your selling proposition, and it's really what makes you unique from your competitors, right? And most times it's the littlest things, right? You can think about Pepsi and Coca-Cola, right? If them outside of the taste, for the most part, their branding for the most part is what the key difference is, right? And sometimes it may not be your branding. You might also have what's called a first mover's advantage. So that's something that I have experience with. When I first started my agency, we were one of the first Black name, image, and likeness mark agencies. So that first Black, the first, that was what we were using to get the press conversations, to get the stories going, because it was a conversation to be had that like, oh, this is going on in the space, but you're the first Black person to do it. So let's talk about that. And that might not be your situation. Maybe you found out a cheaper way to get a product done. Maybe you're faster than your competitors. They're shipping in 5 days, you're shipping in 2 days. Boom, that's how you stand out, right? And that plays a role into your marketing. And then like we were just talking about before, the founder's story, right? So there's some companies where the founder's story plays a huge role in the product, the role in the service, based off the experience they had. So if you're building a product or building a service based off of something that you went through firsthand, you are the subject matter about that. You are the expert. There's a lot of entrepreneurs who are only in their position because they had the capital, but they haven't experienced it, right? So it's like they can't truly speak to the problem that's being solved beyond the fact that they have the capital to do so. So if you're in a position where you look around and you look at your competitors, like in my situation, like there was NIL agencies, but there was none that looked like me. That was something to talk about, right? So if that is something that comes into your role of business, like that's something that's going to help you stand out. And then as mentioned, like if you have a unique way of providing or producing a service. So like if everybody's using machines and you found a way to use AI, or if everybody, as mentioned, is doing it with a longer time frame and you figured out a way to be innovative and execute on a bit more of a quicker timeline, these are things that is going to make you stand out amongst competitors for the most part. So those are some things that I would definitely recommend to, and most of us already have it and just don't even think about it. Like some of y'all on this call right now are probably the first to do something and don't even know it. Some of y'all are probably the first Hispanic founder to do XYZ, don't even know it. Probably the first Black to do XYZ, don't even know it. So really doing your research and be like, oh, nobody else from this background is doing this. That's what makes you unique. So really doing that self-assessment is really what I would say is going to help you stand out in a crowded market.
And if I can piggyback off of that, first of all, I love the fact that the dog was like, yes, you're preaching. I need to come in for this because you're speaking to me. I definitely will say that from a press standpoint, I think that Peter and I have such synergy in this conversation because it's very important to pull that part of your story out. Like once you know how to tell your own story, you're unstoppable. And like Peter said, maybe you're the first Hispanic person to do this. Maybe you're the first queer person to do this. Maybe you're the first person in your local community to do this. Maybe even if you're a first generation college student, like I'm the first person in my family to go to college, and the money that I saved up to do A, B, and C, I ended up doing this with it instead. Like there is always, I promise, there is always a first angle. Like you just have to find out what yours is, whether it's the first in your graduating class, it's the first in your neighborhood, it's the first on your block, whatever it is, that's going to be very important for your value proposition. If you know who you are and if you know your story well and you can tell it back and forward, you're going to be able to proudly say, hey, I'm the first Black male to do this, or hey, I'm the first biracial person to do this, or I'm the first person in my projects to do this. And then that's when people are going to be like, oh, you're the first, tell me more, because that's going to be an exclusive angle that people are going to want to fight for in the press.
Yes. What are the most important components for digital marketing when it comes to startups?
I would say first and foremost, like even digital marketing, offline marketing, making sure that, and this is, I would consider this the preliminary aspect of it, like having your brand mission in mind. So remembering like what the goal is on even creating a social media account and starting to post, and like keeping that in mind moving forward is essentially like putting your key into the ignition. And then before you turn your car on, you do essentially an analysis on where your customers live at, right? So at this point, everybody should have a good understanding on who their customer is, who their target audience is, to the specification of age group, demographics, earnings, locations, etc. And then what I would do is go into a platform like Perplexity or ChatGPT and then say, hey, I have a business that XYZ, their target audience is XYZ, which we should all know. What social media platforms based off of these demographics do these people live on, right? So you might do that and it might tell you Facebook, it might tell you TikTok, right? And then that's Pinterest. Some of us might need to be on Pinterest right now. Some of us need to be on YouTube Shorts, right? So essentially you want to take note of these platforms based off of that initial research. And then obviously you want to go out yourself and do the research. Like what platforms are my competitors on? Like what platforms are the people who are in my similar industry active on? And not only what are they on, what is performing well? So out of their 100 posts, which of the 20 of them are going crazy? Like what format? Is it the reels? Is it when they're going live? Is it the carousel posts? What is it that is going on here that people in my industry are doing that works on social media? And you're taking this not to copy and duplicate the process, but you're taking this to draft your inspiration on what your social media strategy is going to look like, right? Now, you still haven't turned the car on just yet, right? So now that you have an understanding on where your competitors are actively on social media, what's working as it relates to that industry, you want to develop what you call your content pillars, right? And your content pillars, I like to kind of think about it as the house of your content ideas, right? Like every content idea needs to tie back to a house, right? So the way I think about it, and to give some examples, for example, for my company, we have a content pillar that is, we can call it, for now, we can just call it sales and conversion, right? And every content idea, or every post rather, to make it in more simpler terms, every post from that house is all about a promo, is all about a sell. Then we have another house, right? And then when I open the door to that house, you're gonna get a post that is the informative house, right? So that content is me educating people on the industry, me positioning myself as a subject matter expert. But it's not necessarily me selling you on anything, but it's just content like, hey, here's the latest fashion news that came out XYZ, right? Or here's the latest investment, or here's the latest distribution news that is going to impact your customer's next decision-making purchase, the next purchase-making decision. And, that plays a role in, again, positioning yourself as a subject matter expert. Then you might have another house that is for like your team-centric content, where that content is all about you showcasing your team. Like, who is the founder? Who is the graphic designer? Like, what does their day in the life look like, right? Because your page just can't be you selling stuff every day. It just cannot work like that. You might as well just run ads at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like, your page needs to be a diverse, like, amount of content to where people are coming and they're either learning, they're being persuaded, they're being enlightened, and then maybe here and there, maybe once or twice, here and there in the social media calendar, they're being promoted like, head on, and that's where you are ready to now turn your car. Now, before you turn on your car officially is your social media schedule, right? And it's two ways that you can drive this car. You can either drive and then keep stopping, and then what that looks like is skipping this step that I'm about to go over, or you can drive in cruise mode, right? So this is really like your social media schedule, right? So thinking about how many times a month do you want to be posting. My personal recommendation to all close to 50 of us on this call should that be 15 to 20 posts a month. That's 3 to 4 times a week. You still have a few days off. You still have the weekend, and you're taking this to draft your inspiration on what your social media strategy is going to look like, right? Now, you still haven't turned the car on just yet, right? So now that you have an understanding on where your competitors are actively on social media, what's working as it relates to that industry, you want to develop what you call your content pillars, right? And your content pillars, I like to kind of think about it as the house of your content ideas, right? Like every content idea needs to tie back to a house, right? So the way I think about it, and to give some examples, for example, for my company, we have a content pillar that is, we can call it, for now, we can just call it sales and conversion, right? And every content idea, or every post rather, to make it in more simpler terms, every post from that house is all about a promo, is all about a sell. Then we have another house, right? And then when I open the door to that house, you're going to get a post that is the informative house, right? So that content is me educating people on the industry, me positioning myself as a subject matter expert, but it's not necessarily me selling you on anything, but it's just content like, hey, here's the latest fashion news that came out XYZ, right? Or here's the latest investment, or here's the latest distribution news that is going to impact your customer's next decision-making purchase, the next purchase-making decision. And, that plays a role in, again, positioning yourself as a subject matter expert. Then you might have another house that is for like your team-centric content, where that content is all about you showcasing your team, like who is the founder, who is the graphic designer, like what does their day in the life look like, right? Because your page just can't be you selling stuff every day. It just cannot work like that. You might as well just run ads at that point. You know what I'm saying? Like your page needs to be a diverse, like, amount of content to where people are coming and they're either learning, they're being persuaded, they're being enlightened, and then maybe here and there, maybe once or twice, here and there in the social media calendar, they're being promoted like, head on, and that's where you are ready to now turn your car. Now, before you turn on your car officially is your social media schedule, right? And it's two ways that you can drive this car. You can either drive and then keep stopping, and then what that looks like is skipping this step that I'm about to go over, or you can drive in cruise mode, right? So this is really like your social media schedule, right? So thinking about how many times a month do you want to be posting. My personal recommendation to all close to 50 of us on this call should that be 15 to 20 posts a month. That's 3 to 4 times a week. You still have a few days off. You still have the weekend. And we're going to talk about how to automate a lot of this in a second, right? So 3 to 4 times a week. And again, you want to have no more than 2 to 3 platforms. I think 3 platforms is more than enough to focus on at a time. And I know that sounds like a lot because some of y'all are doing 20 times 3 is 60, Peter, and you're not talking about it. We're getting there, right? So what you want to do is, again, and I said this on the other call, take a day to plan out the content, right? So you can do this 2 weeks at a time. So that's really 6 posts, right? If you're doing 3 a week, 3 every week times 2, 6 posts. And it can be a mix of content, right? Carousel content that you can go on Canva for free and just create infographics, right? It can be your founder story content, right? Or even for a lot of us who speak at, if you have other speaking gigs and, public appearances like I have right now, I'm on TikTok live and recording everything like at the same time, and then thinking about, okay, what piece can I repurpose for later, right? And then by the time we're done talking, I already have like 3, 4, 5 clips, right? So it's like thinking about those things, or even for most of us who are hopefully recording ourselves in the past, right? Like documenting the process of when you were doing your practice pitch, when you were getting denials. Like that's something I share with my audience. Like when we apply for stuff and don't get in, I let my audience know, right? By the time you think about all these things, you have 6 posts. You know what I mean? And if you still don't know what to do, go on TikTok and then look up like day in the life of an entrepreneur or entrepreneur life, and then so many videos will give you inspiration to like, oh, some of them you don't even need to talk, right? Like you could just have text on the screen and then just have trending audio. So when you get to this point, the auto cruise aspect of just scheduling it all out, right? So once you take a day to plan it, take another day to edit the content, shoot the content, and then again, LinkedIn, Instagram, and YouTube, you can schedule content for free on all of these platforms, right? So you could just take a day to schedule it all out, so you don't have to pause 3 times a week or think about, oh, I got to post 3 times a week, when you could just take one day to schedule it all out, especially for 2 weeks in advance. That's what I do. Like a lot of content you might see, like there's 11 times out of 10 chances that I scheduled that like a couple weeks ago. You know what I mean? So that's the things I would prioritize. So brand mission, where your customers live, your content pillars, which is your houses where the content ideas come from, and then your social media cadence and how you're scheduling it. So how many content posts can you get out in a week, or in a month is the things that I would take into consideration as you're building out your digital marketing plan.
On the topic of like tools and automation, how can founders with maybe limited access to capital get started on this marketing journey?
I think, so we talked about like, utilizing a lot of the free platforms and their scheduling capabilities. As mentioned, like Instagram has a free scheduler, YouTube, LinkedIn, you're able to schedule content for free. So that's something that can save time. And I kind of want to say something as it relates to the mindset too, when we talk about like low cost or limited resources as entrepreneurs. Like one thing you have to remember as an entrepreneur is that if you have little money, then you have to have a lot of time, right? Or another way to think about it is no cash investment, big time investment. You know what I mean? So it's like, the reason why I say that is like a lot of it, if you're not going to be paying influencers, if you're not going to be running ads, then you have to be the ads. You have to be just as consistent as an ad. You have to be just as present as if you were to hire a celebrity to promote your business, right? So with that being said, that's going to put you in a position where whether it's you, whether you have an intern who is comfortable on camera, whether you have a co-founder, whether it's your little brother who is the social media guy for the company, if that's what it needs to be for now, thinking about the resources that are around you to create organic content. Most of us have an iPhone. All you need is a tripod. Again, as was mentioned, really take a lot of this batch creation content tips that we're saying serious. In addition to that, I think another aspect outside of like social media is email marketing. I'm sure that's something that's came up very frequently. So building an audience outside of social media is something that's very key. So making sure that you're present via like a MailChimp or Substack or whatever email marketing platform that you utilize to engage with your audience is something that's also cost effective. Same thing with SMS blasts. I'm sure most of us who shop at like Fashion Nova or a lot of these beauty companies get texts from them like they're your manager or something like that on a frequent basis. So depending on your company, your product, the type of audience you engage with, taking that into consideration is something that's also key. So I think between organic content, platforms like email marketing, SMS blasts, I think also Google Ads and some other platforms also have programs where they either like match up whatever investment you put. So like if you put like $100 into ads, they'll match the $100. So I would definitely look into programs like that as well. So I think those are some of the things that come to mind as it relates to like low cost customer acquisition.
Well, thank you so much. I'm also dropping a few of these resources as y'all are dropping them, so that way our founders can document them. Our next question is, what role does customer feedback play in refining brand messaging and positioning? So I know both of you talked about looking at competitors, seeing what changed, what not, what didn't. So when it does, what do you do?
Yeah, I think at every company stage, right, like you're not going to, like where you start as a company is obviously not where you're going to finish, right? Like the colors, the logos, the visual, the brand identity as a whole that you have from the moment that the business idea comes to your mind is not what is going to be by the time, let's say, for example, like you accomplish your first milestone, like an investment or something. Saying all of that to say that the customer feedback plays a role in what that difference is, right? Like once you start your company and have conversations about, how people feel when they come on your social media page or how other competitors are attracting or engaging audiences as it relates to like colors or tones, and then seeing if that is even working with the audience, right? Like Ms. Brown said, like you could see something that's being done, and then it might not even be resonating with their audience like you think it is, right? It might look like it's working, but you're talking to their customers and it's not working, right? So this puts you in a position where you're not making the same mistake, and you're also learning from the competitors' mistakes as well, right? So I think that simply as you obviously talk to customers as it relates to the features that they like and the experience they like as it relates to your product or your service, having those conversations as it relates to like, you know, the simple branding. And sometimes I think that's really like a more of a focus group conversation. Like you don't need to have 100 calls about the color of your brand, but you know, industry experts leveraging the professionals and the connections like in your accelerator programs or in your industry that who really have experience in like, you know, brand identity or how these things play a role in customer experience is primarily what I would recommend as it relates to customer or audience feedback as well, and your brand identity. So,
and I would say if I could piggyback off of that, it's also helpful, at least for me, from the, I guess, internal communication standpoint. If you're a company that's going to like scale to, let's say, a larger type of build, like say for example you want to get a lot of employees eventually, one thing that I've actually seen that has helped me is a lot of people like talking about company culture and workplace culture, because you know we're in a time now where people are being very honest about their mental health and how work is impacting that. So sometimes I will look at Glassdoor or Indeed to see what people are saying about other companies, to see how my company can emphasize how much we love to do certain things. I'll also say that sometimes it helps to get completely non-biased feedback from people in my circle. There will be some times where I will make content for my company and I'll call my best friend and I'll be like, hey, can you go to my company's Instagram page real quick? What do you think? And then because, you know, she's not in the weeds like I am every day, she'll give me her honest feedback like, hey, this kind of looks a mess, or this looks good, or I like the caption, but it didn't really grab me until halfway in. So sometimes it helps to have certain people, doesn't matter the age, doesn't matter the, like whatever it is, if it's close to your audience, I would suggest asking those people just, hey, quick glance, what do you think? And that's going to help because they're going to be the people that are in your inner circle that are essentially your audience, but you're getting that feedback from them in real time so that you can make the content that you need to create that will resonate with people like them.
Beautiful. Thank you both so much. And on the concept of what resonates, what are some metrics that startups can use to measure the success of their marketing and branding? So I feel like likes is obvious, but doesn't always translate into sales. So if you both could touch on that, appreciate it.
For sure. I think some of the metrics, and from a marketing perspective, I will categorize them in 3 buckets. Like you have your awareness metrics, right? So like that's like your views, your reach, your impression. Then you have your engagements, right? So that's where you have like your link clicks, you have your comments, you have your likes, and then you have your conversion, right? So this is like sales, add to cart, again like link clicks, etc. And then there are platforms like Facebook Pixel, like if you run ads where you can connect your ads to your website and it'll help you see a lot of these metrics a bit more visibly. But one thing I wanted to say, like even beyond just like the clicks and the followers, which I know most people, you know, prioritize for the most part, is really putting these into SMART goals. So hopefully most of us have already heard of SMART, but essentially the S is for specific. So being very specific about what that goal is. Having your M for measurable, so being sure that you can actually measure this goal, so it's something that you can look on the back end and actually see. Then you have your A for attainable. So with attainable, you want to make sure that it's something that's realistic, right? So thinking to yourself, like, why do we want 10,000 followers, right? Like, why do we want 100,000 followers? Like, is that even attainable? for your goal, right? And then are relevant. So it's the same aspect, right? Like, is this goal relevant? Like, is the other are this other competitors, like when they started, did they have an average trajectory of this statistic, or is this something that is common in my industry as it relates to like goals and metrics? And then T, which is for your time bound, so making sure that this can be done in a realistic time frame, right? So can this be done in 30 days? Can this be done in 60 days? So thinking about your goals from that perspective first, I think is going to help you be realistic, because one thing I don't like people misunderstanding is, oh, followers, but let's break that down. How many followers? Why? How long do you think we can do this? And then that's gonna open the floodgates for all the other conversations. So I think really making sure that you take your goals and then put them into the SMART model is what my recommendation would be as it relates to like metrics.
Thank you so much. Those are great points. And we talked about some common mistakes, I think, throughout the conversation to avoid, but are there any last thoughts on big no-nos when it comes to digital marketing for startups?
I wouldn't say a big no-no per se, but I would say some of the mistakes that a lot of founders make is just waiting too long. I think we were talking about that the last time. A lot of people just be like waiting too long to like start talking about their business, to start talking about their product, to start showcasing their MVP, waiting for the most prettiest logo or for the most colorist orange, most brightest orange in the world. Like these things shouldn't delay you from building their audience and building your community. And I think also what we were talking about before is a lot of individuals really undermining like the viewership nowadays, right? Like we're talking about how like if you get 500 views, before you complain about the video not going viral or not doing anything, think about 500 people like watching you right now, like physically in your room. Like that's an amazing amount of people. So really taking the small wins and taking it as a growth metric and taking the 500 views and thinking about, okay, I got 500 views. From this views, how many people followed me, how many people DM'd me, how many people bought something. Because if you have a 10% conversion, obviously this is very high and optimistic. However, but if you have 50 people from 500, buying a $20 product, this is a very still effective social strategy here, right? So really thinking about things like that, right? Like how many people from this small amount of views do I need to download my app to hit my next goal, or buy my product to hit my next goal, and really put things in perspective like that. And I think lastly, and I think this is something I think I also mentioned in the last talk, having conversations with followers at the early stage. Like that's something that we're doing now. Like we don't have the most followers in the world on TikTok, but like we set up Zoom calls with the few that reach out, you know what I mean? And talk to them like, why did you follow us? Like, how did you come across the page? Like what post was it? Like, was this today, yesterday, or last week? Like, after you start Instagram page, where did you go from there? Did you go to the website? Did you download the app? Like really having these conversations with your followers is, I think, a very, very undermined, and something that a lot of founders don't talk about doing, that I think is very important as it relates to social media. So I think that that's some mistakes to avoid, really just getting out there and showcasing the story. One thing I was going to add on it, or to even put it in perspective, right? Like she said, like the National Day Calendar, that's something that we use. Like, as I mentioned earlier, like I also run a marketing agency. And when we're coming up with social media strategies and plans, like that's one of the first things that we like look into. Like, for example, like we have a content management client that we work with. He's an actor, and as we speak, we already done content for Thanksgiving and Christmas as we speak right now. We're in October, you know what I mean? Like, and that's already done. So wherever I'm at in the world, we already have content for those holidays, and that's because he has limited time. Like she said, there's holidays. Same thing even in October. We did October was suicide prevention month. It was also recovery month as well. And he's also passionate about, he literally gives back to the community every week and didn't even know about that being an official thing. Like he was just doing it as an organic program. And I'm like, oh no, there's an actual day for this that we can really, come up with some idea to really amplify and create some light around. So I think that creating the content is one aspect. And then like she said earlier, like I think everybody, as well as all the other notes that hopefully you've taken, like one homework that you want to have for yourself is, what is going to be my content day, right? Like what is going to be my day that, and if you need to, set a 2-hour timer or something. Set a timer, set an hour timer, set a 2-hour timer, just so you don't feel like you're taking too long. this is going to be my day that I'm going to dedicate to record content for my business. What is that day? Look at your calendar. Again, you don't even need that more than 2 hours. Like, you're not shooting a movie at the end of the day, right? Like, you're shooting Instagram content. So it's like 2 hours, honestly, is more than enough if I'm being transparent, right? But it's like, set that timer. We already talked about how to find the ideas. And again, like, I will go on TikTok and literally look up like day in the life of an entrepreneur, or go on YouTube, look up day in the life of an entrepreneur. And then from there, other content ideas will start coming up, and then just start saving them and be like, okay, I can do this, I can do that. And then if you're not comfortable with showing your face on camera, like I said, for me personally, a lot of the content that does well for me on TikTok, interestingly enough, is the videos where I'm not talking at the camera. It's actually videos where I'm like doing something and then it's like text on the screen where people have to like read it, because that also performs real well, where it's like a short video but enough text where the person has to like watch it again so they can like reread the text on the video. So that's something that works for me. And then on TikTok, same thing with the swipe carousel things, where it's like a picture and then it's a text on the screen, again, where I'm not necessarily talking. Like, those like perform very, very well. So you don't necessarily have to be the superstar. Like, I see people who like, they just take selfies and it's text on the screen and it works, or screenshots of the app and it works, or videos of them showing the mock-ups of the app and it works, right? So really just looking, again, I think TikTok is really good for inspiration, and you'll be able to kind of see different content ideas that other founders are doing to like highlight their business and, you know, showcase things that are working for them. So I think that that's what I would recommend as well.
Thank you both so much for that. And to now segue into press, how could startups build relationships with journalists and media outlets? Where did they begin?
Ooh, I would say it's honestly as easy as, and if y'all don't have this, please have a LinkedIn. I pray to God that each and every one of you have a LinkedIn. If you don't, I'm giving you homework to have a LinkedIn, because that is honestly where I've met some of my best connections in my professional life. If you want to connect with journalists, it's really honestly as easy as looking up who you want, like, where do you want to be featured? Maybe you want to be featured in Ad Age. Maybe you want to be featured in Ad Week. Maybe you want to be featured in Parents. Maybe you want to be featured in Essence. You can connect with these people without it sounding pitchy. Like, I will say, for me as a journalist, things that are transactional doesn't sit right with me, because it's like, okay, well, I understand that you're doing a job and I'm doing a job, but goddamn, like, can we at least like have a conversation? So it's important to just introduce yourself to these people. Like, hey, I like your work. Hey, I like the piece that you wrote on A, B, and C. Like, I can honestly say that there are first-time founders that I didn't know from a can of paint, but they would email me and say, hey, I saw your work and I really loved the interview that you did with Taraji P. Henson. And I figured that if you did a story on this, I think that you might be interested in this. I just want to know your thoughts. Like, no promise on a story, just want to know what you think. And it's like, oh, they pay attention. They know that I write in the lane that they want to be featured in. They're saying that they've read my work, and then they tie that in to what they do. So it's very important to pay attention and just build those relationships. It's so important to build those relationships. Like, I'm not saying you got to call people every week and be like, how's the kids? You don't have to do that. But if you see them on LinkedIn and you see that they got a promotion, say congratulations. If you see that they got laid off, you know, offer support. Like, hey, I'm so sorry that happened. If I see anything, I'll comment you in the section. Like, it's important to just have those genuine relationships, because that's how that's going to come. Because a lot of businesses, small businesses, mom and pop businesses, people that I've featured have been people that we've mutually looked out for. And even if I can't cover that person, like, yo, it's not going to be a good fit for Forbes right now, but I do have somebody that works over at Ebony that I think you'd be a good fit for. I'll introduce you and I'll let y'all take it from there. Just make sure that you realize that just like you have a job, the journalist has a job. We don't always like feeling like we're just the medium between you and a viral story. Like we're also people. Invite us to stuff. Oh, we love an invite. We love a sample. Like if you're selling body butter, like, hey, I don't know if you'd be interested, but I know that you write about beauty products. I want to send you some samples. Like, look, just let me know what you think. Just let me know what you think. Cool. Or maybe you're having a launch event. Maybe it's something small and intimate. Like maybe you're doing a launch event over in Texas. And it's like, hey, you hit up the editor-in-chief at the Houstonian. And you're like, I'm having something small. I see your work. I really like what you're doing over at the Houstonian. I love to get to know you and for you to be able to get to know my business. So why don't you come over to this little launch party that we're having? There's going to be food. There's going to be some beverages. Make yourself comfortable. All that stuff. We're not saying that you have to roll out the red carpet for us, but make us feel included in the experience and not just, oh, I want this from you.
What types of press coverage are the most valuable for early stage startups?
Launches, very, very key. Obviously, when you launch, you want to make sure that you have stories about that. As well as key collaborations. So if you partner with universities, if you partner with a distribution partner, if you score a deal, if you score an investment, that's a big one. That's reasons to keep yourself in the press. And then, one thing I've been learning as a founder as well, and I'm sure that Ms. Brown will touch on it as well, is that it doesn't always and this is me talking to myself too, y'all, because again, I'm doing this entrepreneurship stuff full time. It's like it doesn't always have to be the biggest story about you. Like you don't always have to be the front cover of the press, all right? And it was this her name is Corinne Carter. I would follow her on LinkedIn. She writes at the Forbes, and that's
I love her. That's my girl.
Yes, that's like my big sis. She's like my big press sis. Like all the press game, and that goes to the point of what everybody is saying. Like I know a Forbes writer, and I've known her for 2 years. Am I in Forbes? No. Does she know who I am though? For sure. We talk about Tycoon every time. However, it was one tip that she told me recently that I want to share with y'all when it comes to this press thing, right? And Ms. Brown again can hopefully uncover the gems because I'm still trying to learn too, but is equally as important to also just get your quote and your voice in a bigger article piece, right? For example, I use myself as an example. I'm in the sports industry, so as much as I would love to get a front cover story on Forbes about Peter Ewu launching the best AI agent for student athletes in the globe, it's also important for me and Peter Ewu's name to appear in, here is the latest innovations taking place in the sports tech industry. And then you might scroll, I might not be at the top, I might not be in the second paragraph, but I might be somewhere in the third paragraph giving my little quote I think that AI is gonna play an XYZ role in the sports tech industry, CEO of Tycoon AI. Boom. And then I'm out. I glide right back out of the article. You know what I mean? And for a lot of, and funny enough, believe it or not, from my experience, a lot of press and professionals and journalists, they need those more than they need the stories about us by itself. Like there's more stories about general things than there are about one individual. So because that's the case, the average editor is looking for professionals to give a piece or a blurb to a bigger story. And then you might be very lucky to be, hey, we want to do a full story on you, but again, I'm African from Nigeria. One thing that we say is every day is not Christmas. Every day is not going to be the day where you're front cover. And I got some of those coming. Don't trip. Y'all going to know in the email newsletter. I'll let Miranda know. But that's not going to be every single press article. So I think that that's something to keep in mind in conjunction with the launches and the key collaborations and the investments and all the other stuff I was talking about. So I'm very positive that if I didn't have the smaller press, if I didn't have the local press, if I wasn't speaking to the person from Afrotech and they're like, so I'm reading this article from this person and they're saying this, I'm reading it, that's the type of stories they want to cover. You know what I mean? So I think that don't undermine or be like, oh, those are little news stations. Nah, trust and believe those are going to be the stations that get you on the front cover. You know what I mean? And then I can only not even emphasize how many editors that I knew. Let me say 5 years ago, there was an intern at this place. Now they're the editor in chief. You know what I mean? And it's they could do this story like it's nothing. It's editor in chief. You know what I mean? So I feel those are things that we should really, you know, take pride in, like building those relationships. Building a relationship like with the local press, I think is very, very. I honestly can't even emphasize how important that is. So I just wanted to like emphasize that for sure. When it comes to like this journey of entrepreneurship, there's a magic question that I've learned can open a lot of doors. And the question that I've learned to use that has helped me, especially now that we're planning to raise, is if you don't know how to do it, or if you can't help me, who in your network can? Because I've gotten a lot of denials. I've gotten a lot of people say, oh, we're not in a position to invest, or we're not in a position to, you know, write this story, or our platform is just not there yet to cover this story. Oh, thank you so much for being transparent. I appreciate you being honest with me. However, is there any other writer in your network? Is there any other investor in your network that you can connect me with, right? And 11 times out of 10, you're going to get it. I haven't gotten a no. The worst you will get is, let me think on it and get back to you. But by the time they think, you know, they have somebody like, oh, my little cousin, oh, my little nephew, oh, I forgot my in-law does do that. You know what I mean? So it's like, you never know if you don't ask that question. And as of recently, like, I've been putting it to the test, and I've been scoring like on some MJ stuff. Like I've been cashing. Like a lot of people who can't help end up connecting me, you know, to the next person, even if they can't. So don't feel discouraged if somebody says they can't help you directly, because and a lot of people forget to ask that question, but it's so important. Like, hey, like I know you can't help me, but who do you know that can? You know what I mean? And that might be the Forbes person introducing you to the local blog, or the VC introducing you to the angel investor, right? So you just never know until you ask that question. So I would definitely recommend adding that into your vocab thing.